right? Inciting, not exciting, but in a way exciting. He's an interesting character. And the way that his speech is think like more conservative, politically focused Andrew Tate, kind of, right? He's the conservative, political, white, Christian, conservative Andrew Tate. Where the things that he's saying for a reason, right? He's gaining attention. That's how he's built his platform, is by being insightful in a way that still draws to the points that he's trying to make, and then saying some crazy things that are going to draw attention to him in general, right? And so when you look at the clips that are being posted, and essentially there's been a war that has broken out now, ever since Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his podcast. And I listened to about 70% of that podcast. I'll go back and finish it. But there was nothing crazy on there. And in the background of this is that Fuentes and Carlson were butting heads. Like they both thought each other was a fed. They were both calling each other names, and for a long time. And they got together and they said, okay, let's just have a discussion. Let's just talk. Let's sit in front of each other face to face and actually have a conversation where we have to look each other in the eye. Because when we do that, things will probably be a little bit more, a little bit more cordial than they will be when we're tweeting back and forth looking for clips on the internet. So they sit down, they have a very reasonable discussion, right? Nick Fuentes doesn't say a ton of insightful things, and he holds some very reasonable positions on most topics, I would say. Now, again, going back to, he says insightful things to gain attention, but the underlying sentiment of what he's saying, right? When he's talking about immigration and how the majority of our country in the next however many years is not going to be a Christian, white, European nation anymore, which for the last 270 whatever years has been the case. He generally says that that's not a good thing based on statistics, based on these areas that show these populations coming in here, based on the country statistics of where they're coming from and the type of people that are coming here, probably not a good thing, right? So he holds these types of positions. He says some insightful things, like says some stuff about Hitler, like Hitler was a smart, cool guy or something. Says some things even on the Tucker Carlson podcast about how he's a fan of Stalin, right? Again, going back to him saying it'd be interesting to extrapolate the entirety of these ideas, but it doesn't really go into that same way. But anyways, let's let them do the talking. I'm going to pull up a few of these clips here for you so we can look at them together and see exactly what Ben Shapiro has to say, because Ben Shapiro went after Nick Fuentes, went after Tucker Carlson for 40 minutes, and we're going to watch a little bit of those clips here today. Let's watch the opening.
On today's show, we're going to cover one topic in depth. That topic is, I think, the most important thing happening in the country. It was a hot topic last week, but I wanted to take some time to really gather my thoughts and speak on it in coherent fashion, holistic fashion. That topic is the fragmentation of the political right. That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes. They call themselves the Groypers. They are white supremacists. They hate women, Jews, Hindus, many types of Christians, brown people of a wide variety of backgrounds, blacks, America's foreign policy, and America's Constitution. They admire Hitler and Stalin. And that splinter faction is now being facilitated and normalized within the mainstream Republican Party. The main agent in that normalization is Tucker Carlson, who is an intellectual coward, a dishonest interlocutor, and a terrible friend. And Tucker Carlson last week was aided, abetted, celebrated for normalizing Nazism within the Republican Party by the mainstay organization of the traditional right, the Heritage Foundation. Now, before we explain what's been happening, let's make one thing clear. This is not about free speech or cancellation. It was never about free speech or cancellation. Free speech has a definition, the right to speak free of governmental coercion. I believe in it, of course. I've always defended it. Criticism of bad speech is, in fact, just a form of free speech. Cancellation also has a definition, the banning of particular people, including people like Nick Fuentes, from platforms like X or Facebook. I believe that Nick Fuentes is odious and despicable. but I've never called for his cancellation. And in fact, I've called for his restoration to those services, despite the fact that I think he's odious and despicable. It is not cancellation to draw moral lines between viewpoints. In fact, we used to call that one of the key aspects of conservatism. It is not cancellation to refuse to signal boost Hitler's supporters like Nick Fuentes.
So I like he starts to paint this picture around Nick Fuentes, but this isn't just a Nick Fuentes thing. The reason that they're going after these people as anti-Semitic is because people, including myself, disagree with what's happening in Gaza, disagree with the foreign influence of APAC on American politicians, disagree with the blackmailing of American politicians to do the decision-making of Israel. Nothing I said there was about Jews. Nothing I said there was anti-Semitic. Nothing I said there was insightful towards the people who follow the Torah. I don't believe that what's happening in Gaza, what has happened in Gaza, the absolute destruction and mass murder of women and children in Gaza is morally correct. I don't believe the foreign influence that Netanyahu has over the American political system should be allowed. That to these people is anti-Semitic. That to these people says that I would hate Jewish people, which is not correct. Not correct at all. So what they're trying to do now is they did this. They've done this before in many, many cases. The left did it. You've seen this playbook before. They find the absolute most extreme example of what they're trying to do, and then they try to pull that blanket of that example over onto the entirety of the crowd. And so that's what's happening here is they're trying to say, oh, he said this about, this person's anti-Semitic and they're the Candace Owens and the Tucker Carlsons and the Dave Smith of the world platforming him. Oh, they're also anti-Semitic. They hate Jewish people because why? Because they're platforming somebody. They're having a conversation. They're having a discussion, something that Ben Shapiro won't do with Nick Fuentes. Will not debate him. He's been challenged and challenged and challenged. He's said he would have a conversation with Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro won't have a discussion with him. That's public. That's what we need. Open and honest discussion. That's why when Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes had an issue, and I'll go back to, I didn't even never seen a video of Nick Fuentes until like 3 weeks ago. So they did this like 2 months ago.